Welcome, everybody. Thank you very much indeed for coming. My name is Sarah Whitelaw, and I have the honour of being the chair of this committee. I won't usually go into making speeches, but on this occasion I'm actually going to read something that I would like to say. So welcome all, and thanks for volunteering to sit on this committee. Its remit is clearly central to the effective working of Home Valley Parish Council, and as such we have a crucial role to play in ensuring that the Council is well regarded, effective and efficient. Our two strands, climate action and communication engagement, have the capacity to enable the Council to achieve its objectives through its actions. My view is that CASE requires clear priorities aligned to achievable actions which are resource efficient and appropriate, and I therefore welcome the Council Chair, Councillor Blacker's proposal to start strategic planning. It's also clear that for the Council, and CASE in particular, to be effective, we must work collaboratively with other Council committees, community groups, local and national organisations, particularly in relation to climate action, and Kirklees ward councillors and officers and experts and advisors. With much previous work on which to draw, and while this is a new committee, I think we must utilise as well as review the policies and actions which are currently in place. I think that with the will to address the common purposes which underpin this committee, we can achieve a great deal. There'll be numerous challenges, of course, and our first is to identify precisely what it is that we want to achieve and how and why. Thank you. So, now it's public question time, I think.
So we have several members of the public attending regarding possible co-option, and also 2 members of the public attending regarding items later in the agenda. What usually happens is that within the public session, any member of the public can come and speak for up to 3 minutes on any item that they wish. May well be that the chair will also bring forward some of the items that people have come with a specific brief to speak to as part of the public session. So those items may be brought forward. Within our standing orders, there is capacity so that standing orders can be suspended when particular items are being considered, again, to allow members of the public to speak.
Okay, thank you. So, are the members of the public wishing to make statements?
Shall we start with the co-option? Do you want to start with that, Chair?
Yeah.
So we've got several members of the public who are here to put themselves forward as possible co-optees to the committee. I think we have Kim Warren, okay, and Julia Brown,
Hi.
Rob Hughes,
Hi.
and Francis Bennett. Okay, I don't know if there's and Rachel Hopley as well. Okay.
Yeah.
Right, so if do you want to hear each of them give their 3-minute?
I think that would be appropriate.
Right,
Thank you.
so if we start with Kim then.
Oh, I wasn't prepared. Just to say that I'd like to join in and share my experience and muck in generally. I have over 30 years experience in working in the environment and education, and my main passion has been trying to engage people and infuse them into making changes towards environmental actions, and I also have the honour of being having a comms role for my daily job, which is also to do with running environmental projects for a small not-for-profit company, environmental projects.
Thank you.
Julia Brown?
Yeah, hi. Well, I'm mainly comms. My background's 30 years of retail, entertainment and marketing. But I think the thing that's most relevant to this committee is I do the marketing behind the show, and all the sponsorship and partnership work for them as well. So it's kind of given me a really good grasp of how you manipulate, for want of a better word, the local facilities and publication opportunities to the benefit of, in my case, Holly showed, and if I work with you guys, what you're doing now. That's my very short 3 minutes.
Thank you, Julia.
Bob Hughes?
Hi everybody. I've got 25 plus years experience in mostly commercial roles around communications. I currently work for the Landscape Institute, where I support the landscape architects in their work by managing their membership body. I've got strong interest in the environment. I'm a local smallholder. I live up in Scholes. I've got 2 young children, and I am very interested in wherever I can do influencing the environment and how we respond to climate emergency, how that's communicated, how we educate that, and how we can move forward with a more positive agenda. If I can help in any way with that at all, I'd like to. So, yeah, that's
Thank
my
you very much.
short speech.
Frances Bennett?
I've supported Janet in Home First Transition Town for 11 years, trying to make the valley, people in the valley understand sustainability and how to live more sustainably, and also with reference to climate change. I chair the Home Valley Climate Action Partnership Group, and I also chair Hot Wind, which is the turbine at the farm, where we produce profits that we send, distribute to charitable causes in the valley, to mainly sustainable causes. I also professionally am an engineering geologist, so I run a company for 30 years in engineering geology and environmental science. So I spend a lot of my time cleaning up contaminated sites as a professional business. So I've always been very interested in the environment. I'm a chartered environmentalist, and just like to continue doing that work locally.
Thank you very much.
Rachel Hockley?
Okay, yeah, I guess I sort of reflect on both sides of the roles of this committee, using the experience I've had being a parish councillor for 8 years, and being chair of the predecessor to this committee. So I feel I've got quite a lot of sort of reflections and experience of what works in terms of communications, what we tried before, how we can better engage with the community, both in terms of promoting and helping understanding of what we do as parish council, but also in terms of making that change towards climate zero, net zero, sorry. Driving climate action forward. So, like last year, I led a series of assemblies in all the schools in the valley and planting wildflowers and things. So, I have some sort of understanding of the challenges associated with turning things into tangible projects that actually deliver something. So, I know it's a difficult task to have as a parish council. So, I'm hoping I could offer some experience and reflections, and also my day job. I work for Sustrans, which is a sustainable transport charity, so I've got experience from that kind of third sector. So.
That's great. Thank you very much, Rachel.
And I believe we've also got someone else who's put themselves forward for co-option, Liz Bennett, who's not able to attend tonight, and I think you've got something.
Yeah, we can say that Mrs. sent. So she says, my particular interests are in improving communication between the council and the population of the valley, climate emergency, and improving plant and animal diversity. I've lived in Netherthorne for 13 years. Most of my working life has been as a mental health social worker, although my early degree was in environmental sciences. I worked for just over 2 years as the clerk of the parish council between 2019 and 21. I have a reasonable understanding of how the council works, its procedures and some of the limitations. During my tenure, I was impressed by the work done by so many volunteers in the valley who run groups and organisations. I believe the council could do more to inform people of the work of the Hun Valley Parish Council and what it does, and improve the dissemination of news about events and groups in the valley. I have a particular interest in improving the plant and bird diversity in the Upper Hun Valley. I realise this is a long and complex process, but I'll be willing to engage with the interested parties to further the cause. I'd be interested to support the committee in pursuing its aims and working in any work streams it's decided upon. However, I have no particular practical skills in the technology of communication, nor in applying knowledge of the natural environment, but rather a willingness to see improvement and contribute to that process.
So we've also got 2 members of the public who are here to speak to other specific items on the agenda. The chair has said that she intends for both these items, that's 232414 and 232415, to be brought forward to be heard after 232408, so after the business side of the meeting is finished. But would like to invite the members of the public attending to speak during this public session for their items. So if we start with Jason Brooke, who is here attending regarding item 232414.
Thank you, Madam Chair, fellow councillors. It's unusual not hearing councillors book at the beginning of the day there. It's the first time for 12 years. I've come here about the COVID tree, or the tree of life. I'll give you a bit of brief history. Obviously we had the COVID in the last session and we had a lot of problems. And I went to Durham and they did a massive umbrella thing with names on people's names who died and people leaving blood messages. And I thought, it'd be nice if Home Firth or the Home Valley could do something like it. So I came back, I did some investigating and what have you, and the Tree of Life were born, which basically what it is a celebration of people coming together, not of people dying. Because there was a lot of good work and goodwill in that time. One of the fellow chair there, Mary, was one of the instigators of the people getting food when they couldn't get out. But there's a lot of unsung heroes, and it was brought to my attention that people like the postman who used to go around to people's neighbours to make sure they was okay. He never got thanked for it, but he made sure they was okay. He knocked on the doors, made sure that they was alright, if they need anything for the next morning, he'd go and do it. You had people in supermarkets who went out of their way to make sure that deliveries were getting done, to put on people around the community. You had doctors and nurses, yes, they were getting paid, and they got thanked a lot. But there's all the hidden people behind the scenes who didn't get thanked, the cleaners, the chemist, the pharmacist who created, who started the COVID jabs in the Home Valley area. Yes, he got an award, but he went out of his way to create this scheme. And there's hundreds of people I found out. So the reason I've come to the council tonight is to actually to continue this project, because I think this valley needs something to say this community came together at a time of need. At present, we've got a location which is downstairs on the other steps, not the steps of these steps going up there, it's on this exit. There's a flower bed there, that's where it's going to be going. We've got a budget. The only thing I'm asking the council to do is to ask Nick McGuinness to do a proposed plan, is that right, Madam?
Yeah, we need a more detailed plan.
So what I'm asking the council is to continue this project, but ask Nick McGuinness to do a proper proposed plan so we can get planning permission to get it fitted. He's got a plan, he knows what he's doing, he just needs to be the authorising to do it. We've also got a minister who's ready to confirm it and bless it for when it's happened. And we did ask at the time that we were going to ask local heroes to open this tree, not members of the council or MPs or anybody like that. I think it's the people who deserve it should be there. And I think one suggestion was the pharmacist who created the COVID jab scheme in the Home Valley. Plus, but I mean, I will leave that up to you if you did accept that. If you fancied somebody else doing it, that would be up to yourselves. I'd ask Madam Chair, if you would like to suspend standing orders and ask me any questions, I'm quite happy to ask them. Thank you.
I'm happy to do that. I've got a question.
Yes.
2 questions, in fact. Did the proposal or the suggestion that there would be some sort of memorial go to open tender?
The reason why we went to meet McGuinness is we've used it for the benches and a lot of projects before. And what we've done this time, instead of him putting in saying this is what it costs this, we said, can you do it for this cost? Which was £5,000.
So the answer is no.
No.
Thank you. And is the planning permission for whatever this piece turns out to be and its location?
As I said before, you need to get a proper McGuinness to do a proper plan of the dimensions and everything like that, so you can put it to the Kirklees Council for planning permission.
Okay.
Because obviously it's a listed building here, so you've got to have that permission. If it was in the Memorial Gardens or the beyond Wagstaff statues, you won't need permission. It's just because it's downstairs, you've got to have permission.
Can I ask a question? Could it be in the Memorial Gardens, possibly a better location?
We did ask about the Memorial Gardens. The problem is you've got to be going through transition. As in, I think Councillor, was Councillor Judith Roberts, who was a leader of the committee. Obviously, Ella stepped down, and at the time there was nobody there to take responsibility. And at the time, we were trying to get something in place so we could move forward. But this was a bigger project, and we realised.
Yeah.
So, just thinking outside the box, because the Memorial Garden is quite central to Home Firth, isn't it? And most of the shops around the Memorial.
Maybe can I also say something? The Civic Hall, I'm quite into it. Also, security measures as well. There is a camera right above it, so if there's any damage, it will be a security. One of the other issues we did have was security. That kids are kids. This way we know it's going to be secure because it's under a camera.
Is it like a metal structure where you're gonna? Because like in the NHS we had like ribbon trees, so you could. It's live trees with ribbons on for people.
The plan is it's going to be a tree roughly about 6 foot high, but with a drop, so it's going to be eye level on the railings, so people can have it. We suggest that we put a plaque on the wall commemorating what it's going to be about. And also, the City Hall are interested in doing some sort of plaque where they have a code where you can scan with your phone and it gives you the history of what happened.
Okay, thank you very much. Is there anybody else who wants to ask any questions? The proposal then, if I've understood it correctly, is that you're asking for our go-ahead to look at what needs to be done next and put out a request for a formal description from Mick Kirby-Geddes for the sum of £5,000.
What we need to do to get the planning permission, we need a proper everything.
From him.
Everything's in place. It's just that's all we need now. We didn't have time in the last council year to get it formalised. So this is what I'm asking you to formally ask Geddes to do this document so we can put planning forward, to get permission to put it there. But I do appreciate if you do want to change, it's up to the new council to change.
Just because of the value of it, we do need 3 tenders. That's the procurement process.
Sorry?
Because of the value of the £5,000 value, we are supposed to go for 3 tenders. That's the procurement.
No, you don't, because
was that approved in the previous?
No, it's slightly different, you see, because if we wanted something to do and go to Ted and say, like, can you give us a bit on how much it will cost to do this, then that's what you do. But because we've gone to a person and said, we've got £5,000, can you do it, yes or no? And they said yes. So we don't have to have 3 people to do it.
I think the question then is whether
It's a commission.
It's a commission.
So does that the rules don't work? Is it different?
It's a different situation.
So I think the question is whether we wish to pursue the commissioning in the way that it's been outlined.
Can I just say that any further discussion, my advice as clerk would be you take that after you've done the other business items, elect your co-opted members, elect your vice chair, and so on, so that you've got all your procedural ducks in a row.
Okay, thank you very much. Thank you for that.
Thank you.
And Rachel Hogley regarding item 232415 topograph.
Okay, yeah. I'm conscious that in your papers you've got a kind of summary paper of what I'm seeking for, which effectively is some additional funding from the Parish Council to cover the full cost of the topograph, which is a project that was kicked off kicked off in principle about 2 years ago, but in practice it was sort of approved in its entirety in December 22. And what it is a carved viewpoint, which is on top of Home Loss Car Park. We've got planning permission, and I've sought agreement and the support of both Yorkshire Water, got a planning permission with Peak District National Park and Yorkshire Water agreed to fund the installation. And what it is the reality is that this project, when we first looked into it, I looked into doing a metal plaque, for example, got quotes of £8,000 to £10,000. We had discussions on the committee, this predecessor of this committee, about whether that was a good idea in terms of the cost and the likelihood of it being stolen because of it being metalwork. And through the predecessor of this committee, we came around to the conclusion that actually a carving in stone was a nicer legacy project, more in keeping with the area. So went away and contacted various organisations and ended up finding a very local craftsman based in New Mill, who is a artist who carves on stone, actually, for projects all over the country. But he agreed to do the project for us, and when I came to full council in December 22, my expectation was that the project would cost in the region of £6,000. I think, to be honest, that was based on a bit of optimism and the opportunities that were around in terms of the money that we'd set aside as we went along. And I've outlined those in there. So when I was first chair, I had some leftover money, chairman's allowance, I put that in first, and then there was money left over from the wildflower project that led through the valley. So I suggested those savings go towards it, and then obviously with the King's coronation, that was a good opportunity to say, well, actually, this, rather than it just being a topograph, let's make it actually more than that. It's also a way for parish council commemorating the King's coronation, which is, regardless of your views on the monarchy, still a major milestone in history. So, so what I've come back to you with is the fact that, in effect, it's taken more time than the craftsman anticipated in terms of hours to do it, in part because of the scale of the stone, and also in part because of the requirements of Yorkshire Water in terms of needing extra checks, extra bits of metal bar to reassure them that it's as robust as it can be, given its exposed location. And as a consequence, effectively, the whole project in its entirety should be achievable within just shy of £7,000, which obviously is in excess of the 6,259 originally identified. But I'm conscious that that doesn't reflect the additional time that the craftsman has taken. And I asked him to do and that's, as I say, partly because of scale, because of the size of the place it's got to be. Like a stone that big would just look daft. It needs to be big. And there's some rather nice pictures, at least I think they're nice pictures, of the stone, and I think it'll be a wonderful thing. The concrete is in fact going in this weekend, and over the next couple of weeks it should get installed. But the reality is, the size and scale of it has meant that it's taken more time, particularly for the craftsman. So I'm asking for a contribution towards the additional cost that craftsman has put into creating a stone. He hasn't put in a bill and said, yes, it's definitely costing this extra time, because he knows that he agreed at the outset that this is how much it would cost. But I'm conscious that actually, and I hold my hands up, it's, the scope has extended, and I think particularly as a local craftsman, and the fact that this is something that's of real value to the project, not suggesting we cover all this additional time, but I think we should make a contribution towards it. And I've therefore suggested, on it here, that we increase the budget so that, hang on, it's all on paper, isn't it? I've suggested that we I've suggested perhaps £1,000 from your committee's Royal Events budget, because it is celebrating the coronation that's happened this year, and also that we take £2,250 from the general reserves. And as I say, I would just say that this is going to be an impressive structure. It's going in, we've had stakeholder support, and actually I think we're getting it for a bargain, because I think it probably would have cost about £15,000 if we costed it effectively at the start.
Thank you very much. Does anybody would like to ask any questions? James?
Question.
Yeah.
How do we justify it if he's not giving us a bill?
Oh, he's invoicing us.
So if he's invoicing us for that amount then?
No, he's invoicing us for the amount that we previously agreed.
Yeah.
But he's given this in your papers. There's a list of the time that he thought it would take, and then the time that it has taken. And this equates to, he has a daily rate of £250, which is how it works out. So as I say, I'm not suggesting we pay all of that additional time, but personally I feel we ought to make a contribution.
Thank you. So this is another matter to defer after the proceeding.
Yes.
Yeah? Thank you. So, we're now at the point of procedural matters, is that correct? So I'm supposed to read something out. of the Public Bodies Administration to Meetings Act of 1960, amended by the Openness of Local Government Bodies Regulations 2014 on the 6th of August 2014. Local, parish and town Home Valley Parish Council meetings can now be recorded. This meeting is being recorded by the clerk in video format for the Home Valley Parish Council YouTube channel. Do any other committee members wish to do any recording? Thank you. So now we move on to the election of the co-opted members. Is that right, Carl?
We do, yes.
Thank you.
So, as per the narrative on the agenda, there is space on the committee for up to a further 6 members of the public to be co-opted on. Co-opted members have the right to receive agendas and participate in meetings. Only the 10 elected members, as it is at the moment, can vote. Former co-optees of the Climate Emergency Standing Committee have been emailed regarding their possible interest in joining the committee, and as you are aware, you've received some of the brief written particulars from some of the people who put themselves forward in the public session. Applications may be considered in private session, meaning that applicants' presence would be asked to leave the room and the item removed from the recording. However, my advice as your clerk would be that public session is always preferable. If there are objections to any member of the public putting themselves forward for co-option, then they should be put in a respectful way, and the member of public ought to have the right to hear them. So that's something for the committee to consider. The committee can appoint all, some, or no co-opted members today, dependent only upon how many nominations there are. If there are vacancies, co-option can be considered at each successive case meeting. The committee may wish to be mindful of encouraging or seeking out co-optees who bring a specific skill set or experience that would be of value to the committee in its work. Just to reiterate that any member of the public has a right to apply should there be vacancies.
Thank you very much. My view, for what it's worth, is that the 6 presentations that we've had gives us a really good base, actually, and I think we're very lucky to have had applications from the people concerned. Does anybody wish to hear? Sorry, Councillor Blackburn.
Sorry, I was asking one to make a point of information with it. Just can we agree to co-opt all 6 together? We don't have to. Do we have to discuss people individually, or can we co-opt en bloc?
You can co-opt en bloc if you wish.
Can I second that, please?
Yeah. Do we need to take a vote then?
You do have to take a vote.
I'd like to vote on the proposal that we accept all 6 nominations.
Communication will never be a problem.
Make note of that. Councillor Lyons says. Thank you very much indeed. So now we move to the election of the Vice Chair. And I would like to propose that Councillor Green be nominated as Vice Chair. Would somebody like to? Thank you. Do you want to say anything?
Does anybody else want to do it? In which case I'm quite happy to take that responsibility if you vote for it.
Thank you very much indeed. So we have a proposal to accept Councillor Green, and we need to vote on that as well. Thank you very much. Welcome.
Thank you very much.
If I might just say that, what did you go to consider?
But it seems like it was
This feels like that. What's that feel like? I was very pleased that you said that you would do this, because I think Chris gives a real balance. So I come from the communications end of things, if you like, and Chris is very well versed. As a
I
Green,
don't know.
as a Green
I'm a member of the
councillor.
Green Party, that's
Oh,
it.
that could do it. So, thank you very much indeed. So, next. Apologies.
We've received apologies which have been circulated beforehand from councillors Rostron, Fernandez and Brooke. Do we accept the apology?
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
So next we have an item which is on members and officers' personal and disposable pecuniary interests in items on the agenda. But is there anybody, is that the correct way to phrase this? Is there anybody who wishes to?
It is, and I think because we've got new courted members, just to say, and give a quick explanation of disclosable interest. So, in terms of transparency, interest in any item should be declared under this item, which is a standing item on all the agendas, and consideration given as to whether or not, having had an interest disclosed, the member concerned should either keep silent, leave the room, speak to the motion, participate or not participate in any vote during discussion of the item. Now, it may well be the case that the disclosed interest is one which means that the member should participate in the discussion. Perhaps they've got special knowledge or expertise to bring to the matter, for example. But the key here is transparency and being upfront about these matters at the outset. And if at any time any member of the committee has any queries regarding a disclosable interest, if they want to bring that to Gemma as the assistant clerk who ongoing will be clerking for this committee, or myself, we'd be happy to answer them. Now, all the elected members have clearly filled in a declaration of personal interest and so forth, and other co-opted members have not done that and do not have to be in a situation where they have their disclosable interests published in the same way as elected members. But it is important, therefore, that interests are declared in this item at this stage before the rest of the agenda is looked at.
Can I ask for a point of clarification? Is it appropriate or indeed allowed when we come to an item on the agenda if somebody thinks, oh heck, I should have said?
It is allowed, and that happens. You know, we're all human.
Yeah.
That absolutely happens, and if at that point you then speak up, yes, that's something that could get recorded in minutes and so forth. But generally speaking, wherever you can, it's better to declare interest at this point.
Councillor Miles.
I'm quite happy to go with that approach because sometimes I don't read agenda, so I'm just throwing it out there that not until I get here. So sometimes I go, I have read this. There is no.
Go on.
No, but you don't.
I'm very pleased to hear
Yeah,
that.
but for everybody else though, they have like Rob's not seen the agenda today, so in that instance, because he asked for it when we came in and we went, oh yeah, it's on the internet. So he might not know till like item number 744, but it's like opposite his house or something. So I'm just happy to go with the word that, you know.
I think this is a matter that we should really all make sure that we're well informed before we come to a meeting. And that includes reading the agenda and making sure that we know what's on it. Thank you very much, Councillor Lance. Okay. Any more on that, Clark?
Yeah, just to say, it's all published on the website, you know, and it is absolutely your responsibility as members to read that agenda and to know what's coming up and to declare your interest at the appropriate time. As I said, we're all human, you know, and that's undoubtedly the case, that there will be time when people have to declare it as we come across an agenda item. But the basic principle, as laid out in standing orders and so forth, is that it's this item that they should be declared.
Thank you. So, are we now on to item on the agenda to be discussed in private session?
No.
You can list one.
Number 6.
Number 6.
Oh, sorry, written request.
So in terms of written requests for new declarations of pecuniary and other interests, I have received one from Councillor Whitelaw, but apologies, because we've had problems getting access to the office during Arts Week, I've not yet scanned it and emailed it out to people, so I'll just say that.
Thank you very much. So now we are on to items on the agenda to be discussed in private session. Any recording by members of the public to be halted during while they're not being recorded, and co-opted members to move to a waiting room if indeed there are any items to be discussed in private session.
My advice as clerk is there aren't any items on this agenda that you would be appropriate for private session. Private session, matters pertaining to employee matters, commercial sensitivity, those kinds of issues. I don't think any of the items coming up fit into that.
Is everybody content with that? Thank you.
Yeah.
Yes. Okay, so minutes of the previous meetings, clerk to report.
Yes, just to say that these minutes have been approved. Clearly they're the last minutes from each of the Emergency Standing Committee and the Publications and Communications Committee, both of which were the predecessor committees for this one, if you like.
Okay,
At this point,
so we need to suspend and bring forward item 14, sorry, the codatory, and item 15, the topography, for voting. So we need to suspend the standing orders, sorry. We need to suspend the standing orders.
I'll second that.
Thank you.
Take a vote. Thank you. So in terms of ongoing projects then, I apologise that the report was sent out late. Just to clarify, there was a budget up until the 31st of March of £6,000 for the Home Valley COVID tree sculpture. Now, that went back into general reserves, if you like, on the 1st of April 2023. So if you decide that you are continuing with this project, you will need to make a recommendation to full council to use money from general reserves for this project. Okay, yeah. So just to make that clear. Happy to answer any questions on the report that was sent out. And just to say, you've heard from Jason regarding his views on the project.
Councillor Barker.
I wanted to ask whether this, my assumption is that this sculpture won't include names of anybody, but it's just a general statement. Thank you.
So the proposal, I think, is to progress the commission and the planning permission.
No, I think the clerk said that you need to go to the full council to the budget together so you can go forward.
Okay. Thank you.
And you may wish to consider the recommendations in my report, which is that if you're going to continue with the project, you should consider clarifying and firming up the objectives of the project, deciding whether you wish to continue to work with the artist appointed by the last council to create a tree sculpture. I've talked to Nick Kirby-Geddes today, and he would be willing to continue if you so wish, and appointing a working group and a councillor to lead on the project so that progress can be made between meetings.
Thank you. Councillor Lyons.
Can I second that we take it to full committee and then everybody can make the decision? Am I allowed to do that?
I don't think we need to do that. I think we can make that decision.
All right, okay.
The money,
It's when
you would need to take if you're going to do it, you would need to take a recommendation for the £6,000 to come from general reserves.
What we want is, what you're suggesting is that we have a working group and the councillor to chair it in order to move this project forward.
Yeah.
Yeah. Can we have a vote on that then? Is there anybody who would be willing to chair this particular project?
Can I ask Jason if is he allowed to stay on the working group? Because he is part of this, like. Oh no, he isn't though.
Sorry, I can answer that one for you actually. I'm allowed to be on the committee as a chair, but would not be allowed to do any voting.
Just because he's already doing so much work, and it's just a bit pointless reinventing the wheel, isn't it? Otherwise we'll be in next year going, do you want to let us know?
Is Jason happy with that?
Yeah,
He's
Jason.
not protesting. We need to ask him.
Yes, I will be happy to be on the committee. And yes, if you want me to chair, I would be happy to do that. As I said, I won't be able to vote. I'll be able to make recommendations to the council, with the committee will have to take to this committee to get full approval.
So we need people to volunteer to be on the committee and we need a chair. So,
I volunteer to be on the committee and help you. As long as
thank
you
you,
all
Councillor
work.
Lance. Councillor Blacker?
The working
Councillor
group,
Smith, yeah, the working group, yeah. Yeah. Anybody want to chair it?
I'll be happy to chair it, but as I said, I will not be able to vote.
Okay, thank you for that.
That's all right.
I think we have a solution. Okay.
So you might, in that case, if you're going to move forward with this project, you may wish to make that recommendation to full council to take £6,000 from general reserves and create, I would suggest in the first instance, an earmark reserve for £6,000 for this project.
Can I just ask a question for my information? Is there a strategy that that kind of thing fits into? So it's a commemoration item, and is it considered green? Is making a £5,000, sculpture, is that sustainable? I'm thinking of Salisbury's hanging baskets and that kind of public realm stuff. Anyway, that's
Councillor Graham.
I don't think it's particularly green, but it came from the other committee that has merged with this one, so it came from the publicity side of the budget things.
It's not like agreed, otherwise we'd be planting a proper tree, wouldn't we?
Well, exactly. That's what we're going to the effort of doing the bees, and we're going to the effort of the 15 trees that are going to go in. So the idea of a metal £5,000 thing that uses heat and acetylene torches and God knows what to make it, is kind of the two committees joined together is a little uncomfortable because the Commons will have to have it.
Will you have any advice on what happened previously or information about those sorts of questions? Or maybe Rachel might give some information on it, seeing as they're around.
I mean, I think various sort of different options were thought about, but in the end, the sculpture won out. But then that said, this is your opportunity as the committee to decide if that's still how. There's two questions really. Do you still want to commemorate COVID in some way and that happening in the community? And do you want to do that with the project as was proposed and outlined by Jason, or do that in a different way? Because there's nothing to stop you doing it in a different way, which might be greener, or you might stick to what's a more, well, I mean, it's not necessarily traditional, but a classic sort of
Thank
sculpture.
you for those insights. Councillor Hart.
I wonder if it'd be better to put a live tree in and ask possibly the local school children to use recycled glass to make some sorts of sculptures to put on the branches of the trees.
The reason, it was we decided on a metal sculpture than a live tree. The problem is the live tree will grow. In 100 years' time, we will be leaving a problem for somebody else to. This sculpture is going to be galvanised steel, which is not going to corrode. It's not going to create a problem for anybody else. It's
I'm sure there'll be species of tree that you could have recommended that would not grow, that would be appropriate for the site that's been suggested.
Thank you. Can I make a suggestion that those people who are on, who said that they'll be on the committee will take into consideration all those things that have been said and come up with a proposal?
And come back to this committee.
Yes.
Yeah, that's, I'm happy with that.
Do we need to vote on that?
Why would you? Always formalise it. Always formalise it. Make a resolution.
All those in favour? Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks very much.
So can I ask, are we allowed to spoke to members to vote? No, not on anything at all.
Co-opted members can't vote on anything at all, is my understanding. It even makes serious representations.
Yeah, we listen to this there. An example is like listening to what you want to say.
Thank you. And the topography.
Yeah, the topograph. Yes, so as you know from what's already been said, this is a legacy project from 2022-23. Just to say, in terms of the fundings, I've been talking and discussing this with Rich, as Deputy Clerk, responsible finance officer. He has said that as of 31st of March, there was £2,935 in that budget, and of course it then got taken back into general reserve. So in a way, the way Rich views it is, well, the money is there, it's just in general reserves at the moment, but it was always supposed to be for that project. Okay, so that's...
Yeah, I don't think that'll be what's remaining to be invoiced with the original amount though. That's not the same as the
So
additional.
this is an additional.
This will be additional because basically, so the crafting review basically invoice for the first 50% of the work and the cost of the stone, and then the second 50%, which will be what that remaining is.
So what you're asking for
Yeah, so this is additional. Yeah.
Councillor Lamb.
Can I recommend that we approve it, because stonemasonry is like an exceptionally high skill and it's a very detailed piece of work, and to be fair, right, fair enough. You know, like for that amount of money.
Thank you.
Again, a slightly left field, but is there any scope for combining the intent of what the COVID tree was going to do with what Rachel's doing? I know it's up at the top of her loss or whatever, but why could that not become the COVID memorial if handled slightly differently? Then you've kind of got the spirit of the COVID tree, but it's been made in a more sustainable way because it's Rachel. Yeah, I see where you're coming from. The only problem is it's already commemorating the coronation. So that's already carved and agreed in terms of the planning.
Councillor Lamb.
I was just going to say Rachel had already said it's for the coronation.
Councillor Green.
I know Jason would argue that people can't get up to almost.
I just wanted to second Joe's proposal.
Yeah, she'd already said, Rachel had already said we've changed it for the coronation as well to incorporate that, which probably saved us about £5,000 in coronation things, so winning.
So the proposal is that we accept Rachel's proposal. Can we have a vote on? Can we have a vote on that then, please? Going to accept? Thank you, I think that's unanimous.
Sorry, Chair, can I just ask, I think that then has to be referred to full council.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But we're making a recommendation.
Yes.
Is that correct?
Yeah.
Thank you. So, is there anything else on which you wish to report in the ongoing projects?
That's the way to do it.
Yeah. So can I just ask a question about this memorial tree job? Could we put a forest in somewhere instead?
Well, that's one of the things that you can discuss in your committee.
Yeah, I know, but
Thank you. So we're back to minutes of previous meetings.
Sorry, no, we did that one.
Yes, I've got in front of me, isn't it?
It is difficult when you
skip around.
So this is
looking
the-
forward, but this is
Climate Action Communications Engagement Committee remit and operational review. Is that correct?
Yes, that is correct.
So, do I need to read this out then?
Well, I think you can assume that
People have read it.
yeah, but
Thank you.
I would just say, in terms of a narrative for this, I would hope the committee wouldn't feel any need to rehash discussions and decisions made by the previous council. Suffice it to say there was a need to rationalise committee structure with regards to achieving quorum meetings, a manageable calendar of meetings and ensuring reasonable workload. So whilst this time I prepared this agenda because I clerked both those previous committees, over time this work will transfer to the assistant clerk with some input from myself. Inevitably, there will be something of a settling in period whilst the new committee gets to grips with its remit, and there's still some continuation of previous projects. The terms of reference I've included in the agenda so that you as members can refer to it when it comes to considering the direction of this committee's work. It is a wide-ranging remit. The major items, it's worth the committee reflecting on the fact that, you know, within that remit you can look to achieve whatever it is you want, anything you want. Whilst it's possible to do anything, you won't be able to do everything. And one of the later items, of course, is on you thinking about priorities for yourself as a committee. And what I would ask you to remember when you think about what it is you want to achieve, always be mindful of how you are going to achieve it, and in particular, what kind of resources you've got available to you in terms of clerical time, monies and so forth to make your objectives into actions. The parking team is here to support, and we want to support you. In terms of your work, if you can think of it as a way of the directions to the clerk team need to come through your resolutions at meetings. Okay, that's the way to do it. So just to be aware of that, and that's critical really in seeing through a project to conclusion. The most successful projects tend to be those in which members are willing to invest a considerable amount of their own time, as I'm sure Rachel will testify to in terms of the topograph one. One of the challenges you face as a committee is ensuring that the right amount of attention is paid to each part of your remit: climate action, communications, engagement. And I think that was a challenge even for us doing this agenda. We felt that engagement sort of fell off and cliff a little bit in terms of putting it together. So that's something else I would just draw your attention to.
Okay, thank you very much indeed. So, I think Jen, you've put it in a nutshell really. It seems to me that, you know, we've got a big job to do here, but by being clear about what it is that we want to achieve and why and how, you know, that's the top and bottom of it really. So, is this the point at which I talk about
Your working groups.
Thank you very much indeed. just want to be clear. So, I am firmly of the view that in having 4 committee meetings a year is not going to hack it. And that was why I sent out a note to people who had said they would like to work on the case committee to say which aspects they were particularly interested in, or both, and to say whether they would be willing to work as part of a working group that would enable us to identify our priorities, say what it is that we want to achieve, and how we want to do that. And that those would be proposals that were put together to present to the next, you know, the case committee in question. And so it's the legwork stuff, isn't it, really? So what we have is, in my proposal, is 2 committees, one for climate action and the other for community communication and engagement. So that's my primary proposal, which I'd like to put to the committee. So I think we need to have a vote on that.
Yes.
Is there anything you'd like to say?
The only thing I would say is, if we can get into the habit of calling them working groups, they're not committees. If they are committees, they have to be constituted in an entirely different way. So,
Okay. Yeah, no, that's fair.
And
Fair
they
comment.
subcommittees, no.
you can have subcommittees, but I think the sense in which you are looking at these is you as members working on projects to come up with proposals to go to the full committee meeting. Does that make sense? It's a little, it's a little bit of making the term working group elastic, in that working groups generally just focus on one project, they see it through to conclusion and so forth, whereas what your chair is suggesting is that these continue to work, certainly for the rest of this year, as it were.
But maybe the working groups do only focus on like one priority.
My view is that in the first instance, what we need to do is to establish what our broad practical remit is in terms of what it is that we actually want to do in the first instance, and maybe even what we want to do in the long term, but also to feed in to the priorities for the full council.
So you're proposing tasking working groups with coming up with those
Absolutely.
rules?
Absolutely. And my suggestion would be that we do that people who say they would like to be on this working, or these 2 working groups, come up with a series of proposals to make to the full council, and that we do, but before that, we go to the case committee on the 4th of September with those proposals. So the work would be between now and the 4th of September of the work of those 2 working groups, and that we would draw up what we think are appropriate proposals for case committee, which we would then need to be ratified by case in order to be put forward to full committee on the 9th of October, 10th of October, 9th of October.
You keep using the word proposal. Can we not have actions?
Well, the actions
I'm
would
just
be...
fretting a bit here about proposals.
But the proposals are for action.
Right, good.
Yes? I'm interested in solutions, not just, vague. I personally want clear, concrete objectives, timelines, etc., etc. Yeah, fine.
Proposal was a bit more positive.
And so are we looking at the remits and proposals of action for this 12 months,
Yes.
or for the 4 years of council?
12 months in the first instance, but certainly we would consider what we want for the longer, short, medium and long term, would be my suggestion. But in the first instance, for the first year.
Fine.
Rachel?
I was just going to suggest that those working groups do consider though, there's things that are sort of there's projects which obviously have a clear start and finish, and that ideally is what working groups would just look at, as your club was outlining. But there are also sort of ongoing activities, and I think there's a piece of work to be done by this committee to determine how many of those can effectively be delegated to the clerk team, in terms of, certainly in the time that I was a councillor, it moved from things like social media and website content sort of gradually moving across to being business as usual for the clerk team, and I think it's important that the committee sort of consciously confirms that they still want that to happen, and there isn't just an assumption that suddenly it's all about projects, because actually they're just ongoing communication.
My suggestion would be that all of that is up for discussion by the 2 working groups, and that it's about resources, human, financial, etc., etc. It's about what we want to achieve, actions, but primarily for me, it's about why why we want to do these things. So being clear about what our objectives are is absolutely fundamental, it seems to me. And then from that flows, well, this is how we're going to do it, and this is what we are going to achieve in this timeline. And that might be a small project, or it might be something which is much more fundamental, for example, like the redesign of the website and marketing and PR and how we approach that. So I see it as being very wide-ranging, but also very specific. And it's about review of what's gone before and what's still in place and what carries on, but also what we think, hang on a minute, let's have a look at this and see whether it can work better or whether we're content, all that sort of stuff. Does that make sense?
I'd like to second that.
Yeah. I think I'd also just caution that the time at which your committee needs to decide what it wants for next year isn't actually that far away. So it's really important that you've got that clarity, but also you don't miss the opportunity, which I think Councillor Morgan was alluding to, of taking action in the meantime, because there are actions in your agenda that you perhaps take in the meantime.
Sarah, you asked us for a lot of suggestions, didn't you? And I wondered if you'd collated them and if we had any quick
and
wins.
I sent them out.
I know, but I wondered if you saw any quick wins in your proposals, things that people were quite.
I mean, to be honest, Jo, I didn't go down that route because it seemed to me that at this stage in the proceedings, in other words, prior to the first meeting of the case committee, it was I'd taken it upon myself to say, please have a think about this. Please have a think about what you think the priorities should be, so that we can hit the ground running, if indeed we do agree to have 2 working groups in order to move those things forward. So we have things that you suggest. So, for example, your suggestion about looking at transport from
Park and Ride, yes.
Park and Ride, so that would, there were several examples that people have come up with, but I think we haven't got time in committee to discuss the detail and nature of all of those. I think we have to defer those to working groups to bring back solid recommendations.
Can I ask in terms of pre-education for those people that are on these working groups, with respect to projects that might already be in the domain and working, if we're to review those for their effectiveness and whether they still want to run ahead, is there information for us to be able to read about those and understand them before we get together? I don't want to come up to a meeting without being pre-educated, so that I
would be more than happy for people to submit any suggestions they have for things that other people ought to be aware of and to be informed.
Yeah, I'm just thinking about the projects that are out there that I might need to be informed about, so I can understand them before I come and say, actually, I think this is a great thing, we want to continue it, and in that way.
I was going to say, on the website there is a resume of what's happened in the last couple of years.
Fine.
Yeah, so you can see people's thoughts, and direction of travel.
Fine, I should have found it on the website.
Anybody else?
I think it's a good idea, so I'd like to second it.
What?
Your idea of 2 working groups.
Thank you. Just being clear. So can we move to a vote then that we establish 2 working groups? Thank you very much indeed. Okay.
So do you want to firm up views on each group?
Oh yes, absolutely, but that we don't need to do anything more in terms of, okay. So, all your hands in the air then for which working group you'd like to contribute to, maybe. Alison?
My hands in the air for climate action.
Thank you.
Should we start with climate action so that
Councillor Lyles also. Councillor Green, climate action. Anybody else on climate action?
Yes.
So the co-opted members.
Yes, thank you.
Yeah.
You can't put your hat in the ring with your hand for this one.
No, it's all right.
Do you want everybody who's saying they want to be involved in climate action to put hand up?
Yes.
That would be easy.
Yeah.
I'm going to make a second proposal here.
All right.
that Councillor Green chairs that working group.
Fair enough.
Are you happy with that proposal?
Yeah.
Thank you very much indeed. So
Is it,
that's the climate
you
action.
chair, everybody else is happy with that.
I will second that.
Thank you very much. I think the chances of everybody being able to attend everything is fairly remote. So I personally am not concerned that it's slightly large for a working group. But we'll see, and doubtless you'll be able to sort that out between you.
Do you want to take a vote on Councillor Green?
Yep. Thank you. Pardon?
Was your hand up there as well?
Yes.
At the end.
Sorry, was my hand up there to be on the committee? Yes.
The working group.
On the working group. Thank you. Yeah. So the second one is the communications, and I'm proposing that we have a communications working party, and that's all of the people with their hands up. Thank you. And would somebody like to propose a chair for that? I didn't mean offer. I mean, would you like to propose somebody who would chair it?
Can I propose Alison? You put your hand up, didn't you?
No, she didn't.
Can you not put your hand up and then I'll propose?
No, on the other team.
I'm going to nominate myself then,
Yeah,
if that's allowed.
I'll second it.
Thank you.
Take a vote.
Okay. So, flowing from that, I guess, and somebody will correct me if I'm wrong, no doubt, I, as the first chair of the communications working group, will start to action the work of that group, and similarly, Chris, as chair of the climate action.
I don't know whether the chair knows what I'm supposed to do.
Oh, well, that's about it. Yeah, okay. Thank you very much indeed for that. I think it's got lots of possibility, lots of traction here. We need to make sure that we've got the organisational structure to make it happen, that's all. Hence my suggestions. So, next. Budget and the amount. So, sorry. Okay. So we're going back to overview of.
Overview of the draft of ongoing projects.
But we've already done the two, but this is the rest of them.
Yes.
Thank you.
Apologies for the fact that the report did go out after the main papers were published. What I'm trying to do at the request of the chair is put together an overview of where we are with previous Climate Emergency Standing Committee projects. And it's really useful having Rachel on as a member, because I'm sure she'll be able to chip in about some of these as well. Just to mention how I've clustered them first of all. So the projects at the top tend to be those which are in progress and or ongoing. The ones in the middle tend to be ones which were paused or parked and perhaps could be revisited. And then towards the bottom you've got projects which are completely finished, completed and so forth. So top of the list is the Honley walking cycling map, which is part of the If It's Not Far, Leave the Car campaign. Where we're at with that is a map has been put together showing walking distances from Honley Centre to particular areas. That was sent for further suggestions and feedback to Honley Business Association, who sent back a lot of suggestions. That's where we've got to, because I haven't been able to find the time to deal with the many suggestions that Honley Business Association sent back. So that is still in progress. There is a map that's been constructed, which I'm happy to email out to people to see, but I want to answer Honley Business Association's suggestions before it's finalised.
What sort of suggestions were they? Did they ask you to put like a QR code to their tills on it? What was the suggestion?
There were some of the distances they were querying, and there were some other possible destinations that they wanted looked at.
Oh, so, right, okay.
Rachel.
I find it quite remarkable it's going around that circle again because I know that Michelle Brown, who's our climate emergency coordinator, you know, did engage with Honley Business Association and obviously local councils in Honley, and there's a balance between putting everywhere and just getting a presentable range of distances, because it doesn't actually matter too much what the locations are, because people know. And I think the measurement point is taken from what is regarded as the central point in Honley on Google, which I have a feeling is the roundabout, which doesn't necessarily feel like the middle of Honley, but that is where it's measured from. So there was a logic to it, and I think it's a shame if there's then more rework being done on it, because personally I think it just needs to get out there. The emphasis is just, it's quick to walk to these places, why not think about walking instead?
If you changed it from centre of Honley to like Honley Library, which is on the roundabout in Honley, you know, so like, just say, are you saying on the map the centre of Honley is here, or, you know, like, so for example, instead of saying from the centre of Honley, could you say from Honley Library, which we own and we're encouraging people to use, it's this distance, and it's opposite a car park, isn't it, and, you know what I mean, like, goes everywhere, doesn't it, that little roundabout.
Just to say, as part, I would love you as a committee just to say, go ahead with
Do it,
it.
do it.
It was the last committee meeting that did say to take it back to Honley Business Association.
I don't think
Well, I would suggest that we just decide what we want to put on the map and say, thank you on the Business Association for your suggestions, we've taken on board, here is the map.
Yeah, and if you want to sponsor the map,
Yeah.
Sorry, I was just going to say, I thought this had all been finished long ago. It seems to go on several iterations. I suggest we leave it as it is. I thought it was complete.
Yeah.
If somebody was...
Can you go back to Honley businesses and say we'll refresh it in X, but we're going ahead with it now, and give a more positive tilt to it, as in we've listened, we're going to do something about it, and maybe next time, but right now, this is what you get it.
With that caveat, will people be prepared to say let's go ahead then? Do we vote on that? Yeah? Go ahead. An explanation to...
Jamie, I'm over.
This is...
So,
I'm sure you can find some suitable ways.
That's great. Right, so Cycling Festival is on the agenda for later. The development of the database and community and business contacts for sharing information. I know Gemma's been busy on the Cycling Festival, and before that on Honley Show. Once we've got the Cycling Festival done, it's likely that that's the point at which we'll then pick that up again in September. I don't know if you want to comment on that, Gemma.
Yeah, I think where it has got to at the moment, and I really have just had to kind of put it to one side because I'm 3 months in and there's been a lot. But there's a great big long list of businesses, community groups, other organisations within the Home Valley that are currently just in a giant spreadsheet. And I think the intention is to have it as a mailing list or a contact list or whatever it might be. But a lot of that information, I believe, has been gathered in a way that wasn't asking for consent. So the first thing that probably needs to happen is a bit of a mail out, just to kind of make sure that we're GDPR compliant on it. So I think that's the next phase, but I'm just going to have to hang on a little bit until I can find time to deal with it.
Can I just ask sort of what it's for?
I was glad you asked that.
Because Home Valley Climate Action Partnership have got a list of businesses and whatnot, but they've been getting permission, you know, for people to link together. So it seems a little bit like repeating.
I mean, Rachel might be able to fill you in on the thinking behind it.
Where it came from originally was there was a desire to engage with organisations, including community groups, but also businesses, to share with them the fact that there was a climate action plan, and it was a way of engaging with, or finding out who all these people you talk to in the valley. We might put notices on the notice board, nobody reads them, nobody sees anything on social media because there's too much information there, so we need to actually actively engage with people. But then, to be honest, what it also showed up is that the parish council had no idea who the different people and organisations were in the valley. And we ended up, certainly, again, when the first few years I was on the council, the same old people came in asking for grants. And so we did quite a bit of work to try and boost our understanding of all the different groups that are out there. So it sort of merged two things, really. One was wanting to engage to tell people, look, we've declared a climate emergency. What can we do together to achieve things? And hear from you, so hear from businesses and community groups, what have you done that actually you could share and we could help spread the message, so that we then became a kind of middle person to inspire others. And then also alongside that was the desire of the parish council to actually understand what are all the groups and services that really could get something from working with us and help us understand it. So it became a bigger thing than just a climate action day.
Served a number of purposes.
Yes, but the intention was then to be able to send out a regular communication with people who actively wanted to hear about climate action in the valley.
And did that actually happen?
No.
Okay.
Because this database is always being built.
Joe?
So, just from a business point of view, and also a renewable person will know this, that the government is actively encouraging companies to seek renewable regos, grants, certificates, and engage with councils and companies that do green initiatives. So I appreciate that the database was started for that, but sort of the tide has turned because the government is now putting the onus back on the business owners to offset their carbon footprints. So whereas the good intention in the original start was like, hey, we can help you carbon offset, now the government's going, you carbon offset, find a way of doing it. So, you know, that's like, you know, like a tide of turn, and if it's like another never-ending thing, maybe we should steal the information off someone else.
Sorry, yeah, so Alison is right with you, we're doing exactly the same thing in the Home Valley Climate Action Partnership. So I would suggest that perhaps we could get together with Clark and make sure that, you know, we combine the database, or we both have a very similar database, so exchange information.
So again, we need to just check in on GDPR on that and sharing that kind of information.
I understood the database wasn't only fused by what was then whatever it was called, the predecessor committee, but it was also there for the use of the whole of the parish council, and we wanted to publicise something on two-way communication. And also I was wondering whether it might be possible to use it for outside groups if they want information circulating. But certainly I don't think there's ever just limited to the climate action.
I was going to make a very similar point. I asked the question, is the database itself not a pubs and cons issue that creates a tool that the climate emergency site can use, as can all the other committees within the council?
That would seem sensible. So the suggestion would be then that perhaps in the first instance I come and have a chat with you about where it's got to and who else we should be working to and how to take this forward, if indeed we do want to take it forward in its current form and for its original purposes. Does that make sense?
Do you want to add it to the remit of the communications working?
Yes, I think we do.
And I'd suggest in the first instance we do just work out whether we can pinch Fran's database.
Yeah, you have to get GDPR.
Yeah, but is it not going to be easy to do that in the long run than duplicate all the work?
It's very substantial as it is, it's just that we haven't done the checks. You have to get people to opt in effectively, and we haven't done that.
This parish council is connected to the Climate Action Partnership.
Yeah, I'm our representative.
Yeah, we
On
are,
meeting
yeah,
on
but
the 26th.
historically the logo's there, isn't it? It's all,
I'm not sure it works that well with the
Yeah.
data detection.
yeah.
I'm not sure it does.
I thought they were working, well, no, I don't know
I don't, but I'm not sure. It's a difficult.
Okay, I think we have this.
Sure, sure.
And you're going to
Just-
hang on.
Can't you just email the members on both databases saying we're considering merging these databases. Are you okay with that?
I think that's something that we can discuss with.
I don't know, it's just a
Gemma.
question.
We'll take that
Yeah.
forward.
Yeah.
Is that okay with people, Julia?
It is, because you'll need them to third party opt in as well. So they'll have to opt in for communications from you, but because you're trying to agglomerate a number of everyone, will have to opt in directly for communication from the Home Valley Parish Council and third party opt in. If everybody else is going to use it, or it's going to be useful for you and for the
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, so as you can see from the report, those top three were the main things still in progress. There are a lot of ongoing projects here. I'm just aware of timing, with it being 8:20. I wondered if anyone's got any particular questions about any of the projects that are listed, rather than sort of go through them one by one. I think the fact that you've got 28 different projects listed there, it does show the scope of that committee's work and how much work was undertaken. Some of it is just completed, as I said, but a lot of it is ongoing. And then you've got in the middle a raft of things which were paused, which you may want to revisit. But I think probably something for your two working groups to use this list and review from it what you might want to focus on.
Yeah, I think, well, I hope I made clear that one of the things that both working groups would do would be to have a look at previous work and see what we learned from that and what we want to take forward, etc.
And hopefully that might answer some of your questions.
Thank you.
Yeah. And if you've got anything, if you want to sort of have a longer chat about any of these, you're very welcome to give me a ring.
Thank you.
Sorry, I was just going to add, for some of the ones that are parked or paused, there was a conscious reason why they were paused. So don't assume it was just necessarily because of a lack of resource. There might have been a reason, and there is a few of those.
Yeah.
So, which I'm obviously happy to share with the working group.
Thank you very much. So is that it as far as ongoing projects is concerned then?
Yeah, so you can just note that. I think you've got lots of things you're going to take into your working groups from it. I don't think you've necessarily got any specific actions that you need to take a vote on for that.
Okay, thank you. So, the next item is ideas for climate action.
Okay, so this is particularly on the agenda because the merging of the two committees was not without quite a lot of discussion at both committee meetings and indeed full council. And one of the commitments that was made is that there would be an open agenda item on ideas for climate action to be considered at this meeting. And if you have a discussion regarding ideas for climate action here, that might be a useful precursor to item 12 on priorities. On the other hand, it may be that you decide that's something your working group will take forward.
I would like to propose that that's exactly what we do. Do we need to vote on that?
Seconded.
All those in favour? Thank you. So the next item is earmarked reserves.
And budget, yeah.
Yes, the budget, yeah.
So again, apologies that this report came out late as well. Can I just draw your attention to a couple of items on the budget and from the list of earmarked reserves as well. So earmarked reserve 341, which has currently got £14,467 in. That was the Climate Emergency Standing Committee's underspend from last year. So that was money that was in the budget, hadn't been, for a variety of reasons, was still in the budget approaching the 31st of March, and it was resolved to place it into an earmarked reserve. I think this is one of the issues that the Climate Emergency Committee had, it had, you know, quite a reasonable budget. Actually, commissioning projects is a huge task. One of the things I've discussed with Rich and the Deputy Clerk in RFO is the possibility of this committee becoming a grant giving committee in 2024-25, which might be something you want to explore, because it's actually easier procedurally to get people to, you know, who have got green initiatives and climate action initiatives to apply to you as a committee for grants, do all that sort of paperwork and so on for you to consider, rather than you as a committee go out and find projects to spend that kind of money on. So that's something which maybe that you want to discuss in further detail at the next meeting, to put forward proposals to Council for the council year 2024-25. For 2023-24, I do think you might want to work with the Finance and Management Committee regarding any grant applications they get that have an energy or green focus. And you know, it's a little bit messy to wire money between committees. It has to sort of go through full council, because that's what our financial regulations say. But it is certainly worth thinking about working with F&M in that way.
Can I make a couple of suggestions then on the basis of what you've just said, James? One is that the two working groups take a view on the awarding of grants that are appropriate for their particular working group to bring back to the next case committee, and that both those committees undertake to liaise with the finance committees about grant awarding. Cover the two items.
Yes, and then just to say also on the earmark reserves, you've got that earmark reserve, Honley Library, energy. Service Provision Committee works with Honley Library, Friends of Honley Library report to the Service Provision Committee over grant applications and so forth. But again, it's one in which, you know, there is that opportunity for dual working, if you like,
Yeah.
across the committees.
Thank you. I mean, I anticipate that both working groups and the whole committee will, as a you know, as a point of formality almost, will always consider the relationship with other parish council committees and working together. So, you know, you take that as a read that you're going to do that with any of the work that we undertake. Yeah.
And and just also to say that the publications and communications budget, that will take care of itself over the year. You know, that was not a budget that was overspent or underspent last year. But it is just making a note of the fact you've got 22,296, is it, altogether? Yeah, so as we progress through the year, looking at how you are spending your budget, particularly as in the autumn, so very quickly, you've got your September meeting, and then there will be a meeting where you need to consider your budget request for 2025.
Thank you.
Sorry, I just wanted to make a point that it's difficult because I don't know what the ongoing projects are, because I wasn't told to have any of them beforehand. But I appreciate the suggestion of becoming a grant awarding body for, but being from an organisation that often tries to apply for grants, or knowing what the uptake and understanding of grants can be. Rather to think about whether or not there are actions on the list that perhaps could be specifically asked and put out to the Home Valley businesses and organisations, whether they could deliver them, so that you're giving them the idea already already almost putting it out to tender. Because I feel I always think that we don't know what skills are out there and whether that can be delivered by a local business within a budget.
No, I think that's okay. Thank you. So we've dealt with this trees and the Henry photography. So the next item I think is the report, or is this, or I missed something?
Number 13. Key priorities.
But we've already dealt with that. We're taking it to working groups to come back.
Okay, we just need to mention it.
Yeah. Sorry, so this is item 23, 24, 13, identification of priorities and key actions, and we have limited the two working groups to deal with that and bring those back to the next case committee meeting. Yeah? Okay. Thank you. So, we now are on 260.
Yeah.
Thank you. On the show report.
Sorry, it's been.
Nobody's favourite.
Oh, hello, Julia.
We didn't meet at the show.
No.
It's enormous and bigger than I thought it was. The previous Climate Emergency Committee had resolved to do a table at the Holly Show. So when I came in sort of 3 months ago, it was sort of number one project to go and do something with that piece. So I sort of took it as a kind of climate community action theme and invited some of our partners that we work with. The new engagement officer for River Home Connections came with me on the day. She brought some lovely little water invertebrates, and that brought lots of children in to come and chat to us, which was really lovely. But also took the opportunity to advertise volunteering positions that were sort of in organisations that were known to us. So we put the word out about people like Home Pride, we had Home Earth Cycling Club, we had trustee positions for a couple of organisations locally, and there was a junior school that was looking for people with to help with their allotments and their green space, that sort of thing. Also took a stash of grant flyers because, you know, why waste the opportunity, and a load of our not far leave the car maps as well. So it was a nice day. We talked to loads of people from all walks of life, lots of the public, lots of other organisations, because we're in a community area as well. So that's sort of it really as to what happened on the day. You might want to consider doing it again next year and what you might want to achieve out of that.
Did you think it was worth it?
It's a tricky one because there weren't really any specific outcomes targeted. So it was difficult to kind of go in there cold with no committee because we were in a strange period of time between two committees. So I think, but I do think getting our faces into the public realm doesn't really matter what we're doing is valuable, and just having presence at these things and being a supporter of Holly Show and that sort of thing. But that's my personal opinion.
I think you're absolutely right. Portraits were, you know, presence is everything.
Mary was also in attendance, so she may also want to have a little bit to say about it.
Yeah, I was there as chair and presented some handicap cards. It was it's a brilliant event, and I really feel that we should support it every year. It's probably the largest local event, you know, within the parish council area. And I completely agree with what Jen has just said. It is always worth flying the flag because you don't know who's picked up a leaflet, who's seen you. I think we should make that
Can I just say that it nearly always coincides with the start of Heart Week here. And again, I think when I was on the door of Heart Week here, several people said to me,
building usually used for? Which again, there's no obvious communication that it's used by the parish council or what the parish council does here. So, I don't, it is a shame that they haven't
Visibility.
yeah.
Julia?
Yeah, just as I'm from Holly Show, I might as well speak about what you just said. Yeah, I think it's great for you to be there because I think it's part of a multi-layered common strategy where if there's a piece of print or there's this Facebook post that I was doing and tagging you in and so you get a much broader reach. And I think actually being there in person is really good, but it's just kind of part of the pyramid of comms. We'd love to keep supporting you. We try, what we've written in here and the stuff we did to be supporting back to you as you have been to us. So that sort of symbiotic thing is what we need to achieve with all the local organisations, and kind of Holiday Show I think is quite a good blueprint for how to do that. Yeah. But it's also worth saying that we kind of have got a desire to fly the flag for more of the sustainability stuff. And we were working with Longley Farm last year, a guy called Chris Harrop, I think he was, that's doing educational stuff on that area. And we wanted to dig into it this year, but Longley Farm had got personnel issues and people off on maternity leave and that kind of thing. But I actually think the green side or the sustainability thing could come through on this show much more strongly, and we're kind of looking for somebody to work with on it. So if that's the Parish Council and the Green Initiative, then that would be great. Or we can showcase you more, or profile you more, or work with you, or however we can do it. Yeah.
Thank you, Julia. That's very helpful. Joe?
Could I just say that I like on the show, but I'm always busy doing some other fancy go. But I do go sometimes. Do go this time. So we really need to see it from my house. I would like the programme to be digital though next year. And then the paper copy for the older end who don't have the digital. Because we sponsored the programme. I just think it should have been a digital one because we're flying the flag for green initiatives, but printing it on paper.
Yeah, we kind of did it as part of the strategy. We didn't think about doing it digitally. We did also thought about doing it on sustainable paper, but we were too far down the road over we've got our print costs in that kind of thing. But again, we were doing a lot of digital everything, and there's still room for print. There's a standard. There's a standard comment. How do you cut through in a digital environment? You print a leaflet. Yeah, and it's kind of. So I think it's part of an overall strategy. But
You had like QR codes around the stand area, so if you had it in the sheep section, Do you know what I'm saying? Like you go around, don't you? And the Yorkshire Show's done it this year, but then it's gone epically wrong. Lastminute.com. So they've gone like. And then they've had loads of backlash because they've had to print the programme off. But they did do a digital programme this year that's epically failed. Yeah. So, possibly.
You're not being very convincing.
I'll look at it for 2033.
I think it's the ticket, buy your ticket at a ticket office issue, isn't it, really? Anyway, we'll draw a veil there.
Sorry, can I just ask one question? It's just quite specific.
Go on then.
You said Jimmy Dickinson's farm couldn't be there and your theme was sustainability. What about the other farmers who are joining in? Why is it always Longley Farm that is the flagship for sustainability?
Partly because we're a sponsor, and partly because we interface with them in that way, and they've already got a sustainability strand to the business. Now, I know certain people do show sheep, certain people show cattle, but there's no way really that the Holly Show Committee could actually go around all those different people and say, are any of you got a particular interest in sustainability? Quite a lot of them have just left, probably. But we know Jimmy Dickinson has, so.
I think it's a shame.
I'm very happy if any of you want to join the Holly Show Committee as a sustainability or Holly Show to talk to all those farmers. I consider you next meeting, August, the first Tuesday in August. I'll see you there.
Thank you very much. Can we move on to the cycling event then?
Yep. Cycling event is another one that I've sort of taken over with Flo.
Sorry, can I just sort of declare an interest in that the company that I work for may bid to deliver on this Saturday.
and we will have a chat about that sometime this week. So this is another project that's sort of taken over mid-flow. Where we have got to with it is the background of it is that the previous emergency committee had resolved to set up the cycling festival for June. You may notice that it's now July and it's not happened, and that is because there has been some absence and a change of staff, and new community posts has affected that. So the intention is to change the dates. Actually, Sunday the 10th of September. Sorry, I didn't quite catch that. The date was running there. So we have moved the date.
Sorry, say this again.
It's the 10th of September.
Yeah, there's also a cycling event on the 10th of September.
There is, but it is a sponsored cycle, so we are going to invite them to come down and have a chat to them.
Is that a Sunday then?
Yes.
Yeah.
So as Councillor Ryder quite rightly points out, there is another event on that day, but we just the availability meant that the 10th was going to be a better day. But it's a Scout sponsored cycling event, so it doesn't really impact us, and actually we can invite them down to come and enjoy our event as well, and they're all on cycling. With the intention of promoting activism, so what we've got so far is we've booked the sand site, which will be the 2 all-weather courts and the field next to it. With the intention of having lots of exhibitors and activities and probably coffee, if coffee people will ever get back to me about coffee. So we've got a couple of activities booked. I think Little Bikers are on board. Unfortunately, street bikes are not available, so I'm going to have a chat with Pennine Sports Partnership this week, and then there's a number of other organisations that are either not got back to me yet or sort of in progress. Toilets are booked, and Smoothie Bike is booked, and then I'm due to have a conversation with Kim about what we might do with ethics as well. So that's where we're up to so far.
Thank you very much. Any questions? Okay, lovely. Thank you very much.
Sorry. So is the question, is the event to encourage people to cycle more?
Yeah, so the idea is to so some biking activities for younger sort of children to encourage. It's all part of the Not Far Leave the Car campaign. So around that sort of side of things, but to have exhibitors and experts to come in and advise people on safe cycling and
Maybe not like
e-bikes
cycle
and
companies are selling bikes, because there's
probably not selling the bikes themselves, but possibly.
Just
if I can
because
get them to turn up.
like there's quite a few there's one at the Fox Alley, they do electric bikes.
Yeah,
they,
that kind of
things
thing.
like that.
Albion down at Farmsbridge.
Yeah, do you know like local-ish companies? And
Yeah.
then, because obviously, if like suppose people get in the flow, don't they? All enthusiastic buy a bike and start cycling. Do you know like to take up like the
So it's to invite some cycle clubs as well, so they'll be great for giving advice about being safe on the road, how to get involved with those organisations. But yeah, like you say, cycle companies, if we can convince them to come down, but they don't seem keen, because it might not be worth their while.
That place at Fox Alley is quite.
Is
like,
it?
They get involved.
I don't think I've talked to them yet, so I will.
They do sell ridiculously expensive
Oh,
bikes, so
no.
that probably might be why they're keen to get out there. But you know, it might be worth it, might it? If they offer you a raffle prize or something.
Can I just ask a question? Johnny, you're working on this, but is this going to be part of the working party?
I'd appreciate some help if anybody.
Is there
anyone
is
so
anybody
else
else doing helping you, or is it?
So Sharon at HVCAP has helped a lot with contacts.
But no one ran this table.
But nobody so
Right.
far. Yeah.
Do you want to just work in there?
Sorry, Andy Wilson. Oh, Andy Wilson has been helping you. You're quite right. He was part of the former committee that helped. So it was sort of his project, and it's been moved through.
Did you have a question?
It's more of an observation really, and I wondered whether as part of that cycling piece you were not only dealing with people's ability to stay safe, but dealing with their perception of whether they are safe on the road. A big thing about, I've got two kids, letting them on the road on a bike in the way that I did when I was a kid was kind of something I wouldn't do, simply because a lot of road drivers don't respect people on a bike. And a big barrier for me in getting more bikes on the road and getting more people out of cars is that perception of safety, and it's just not there.
And if you've got an idea of how to turn that concept into
It's an
something that's
observation,
investable,
that
would be really helpful.
Yeah.
thank
Will
you.
you join in just in the email flow at least? So
Sure,
that you can
yeah,
put
okay.
forward things?
Yeah, I'll get it. Yeah, happy to think about it. And look elsewhere to see if there's any best practice as well.
That's all right, Andrew?
Yep.
Okay, brilliant, thank you. Thanks very much indeed. The next one is the future of the Home Valley Parish Council Climate Action website. I think you're to report on this, Jen, is that right?
Yeah, so there's quite a lot of narrative I've put into the agenda, including a number of factors to consider. Home Valley Parish Council has its own website for all Home Valley Parish Council matters. The existence of separate websites has caused some confusion. It may be possible or desirable to incorporate key aspects of the Home Valley Parish Council Climate Action website into the main website. The ongoing content management of the Climate Action website run by Home Valley Parish Council, if it is to continue, and ensuring clarity regarding which initiatives are being led by Climate Action Communications Engagement Committee. And just to sort of add to that, there have been a number of recent issues that have arisen regarding the Home Valley Parish Council's Climate Action website, which I am continuing to deal with as clerk, that I do just need to draw your attention to. So a member of the public raised through a councillor their confusion over contact details for HVPC Climate Action, given that HVCAP has a page dedicated to it on the website and gives out contact details. So that was causing confusion. I'm also currently dealing with a complaint, which is at an informal stage at the moment, and that's connected to an administrator role on the Facebook page. So it's proven to be problematic in the last couple of months, quite definitely. The fact that we've got this Climate Action website and Facebook page, which is separate but linked to the Home Valley Parish Council main website and Facebook page, but also has certainly up until now had administrators who were not on the clerk team. So I'm not really, I can't really give you any further details about that at the moment, but just to say that.
Can I ask you, Jen, whether you think it would be useful, appropriate at this stage to take the Climate Action website down?
I've got to say that I've talked about this with both Gemma and Rich. We're of the view that all posts and actions regarding Home Valley Parish Council matters should be channelled through the Home Valley Parish Council main website and Facebook pages, and that only the clerk team should administer those accounts. The existence of a separate Climate Action website and social media have had and are likely to continue to cause confusion and run the risk of reputational damage.
Okay.
So while the council may share some objectives with partner organisations, it shouldn't be putting itself in a position where it appears to be answerable for objectives and actions it has not been authorised to adopt.
So just two very quick points, sorry to jump in. One, we don't get any analytics on the website part of it, so I don't know what the engagement is like, but I do know that the Facebook site, the engagement level is really quite low and much lower than our main core Home Valley Parish Council site. So it would actually reach a bigger audience to push anything out through there anyway, so it sort of makes sense
Thank you.
to my mind to do that. Sorry, there was a second point.
Sorry.
Further on in the agenda is a media and communications policy which does address some of this anyway, which hopefully will help to move some of that on as it is. So that's me.
So am I right in thinking that there used to be a paid person by the parish council to do climate, and now there isn't? That person has moved on, which is why. Is that part of the issue? And if there isn't going to be a paid person, then there's nobody running this website anymore, then, is there?
Well, it's part of the issue. What happened when the climate emergency coordinator left?
Yes.
Is basically we've had that particular website and Facebook page has been in abeyance. It's had very little posted from it, full stop, or very little in the way of changes made to it. Partly because we were waiting for this meeting and this committee to decide on the direction. But during that time, there have been some, reputational issues that have arisen.
I'm fully in support of what Parish Clerk is suggesting. I mean, I think there needs to be absolute clarity about who is responsible for what.
Yeah.
And I think the Parish Council is possibly able to some reputational damage if we don't actually sort this out and possibly FOI requests and so on. So I think it's really important that the clerk team has complete responsibility for any Facebook page or any website which it appears to or does belong to the Parish Council.
Thank you, Rachel.
I mean, I agree with what's being proposed, but I think the way this website evolved was in part because of this sort of partnership between HVCAP and the Parish Council and the desire to have a repository, if you like, of shared resources. So I think it's important that even if it's shut down, thought is given to quite a lot of useful information that's on there, and where that can best be made available through the Parish Council website, and also conscious that HVCAP may want some of the resources for that. So I'd just say there's quite useful stuff on it. I appreciate it hasn't been actively used and is clearly causing problems.
Thank you.
Could I second Mary's suggestion?
So the suggestion, my suggestion was that it's taken down while we make a decision about how we want to move forward in terms of our presence. But the point being made is that it should be all under the auspices of the Parish Council and controlled by people who are employed by the Parish Council yourself.
Then it's not a separate entity, and all the
No,
work we're doing for the climate emergency comes under the Parish Council umbrella,
And it's what
and
we're
the people
about.
that are working towards,
Yeah.
the good things that the parish does.
So do we need to vote on that, Jenny?
Yes, so you're really looking at a motion whereby you're going to discontinue with that website and Facebook page, and instead, being mindful of the resources that are on there and making sure that those are transferred where appropriate to the Home Valley Parish Council website, and indeed where it's possible, making sure that there are links to our partner organisations and so forth, but nevertheless, continuing with the website and Facebook page as separate entities, that's discontinued.
Can I suggest that the way in which those matters are dealt with, in other words, the climate action, climate emergency stuff, and the publicity and resources and stuff, is on the agenda for both of the working groups. So it's something that the climate action group has a discussion about, but also so does the community engagement. Julia.
Just, to be mindful of not throwing the baby out with the bathwater, just retire the domain. Don't take the website down, don't lose all the information on it, because we might want to save some aspects of it, and if it completely disappears and gets totally dismantled and we've got no reference to what was there previously, it's hard to innovate something better when you've not got your base case sat there. And there might be elements of it that, when I had a quick look at it, it's very, it's almost trying to be too interactive, the website. We should leave the interactivity to the social side of things, and this should be a repository of more static information. Yeah.
So I'm going to show my ignorance here, Julie. Is it not possible to close it down for public access? But
Yes,
still
yeah,
retain,
that's what I'm
but
saying.
still
Just keep
retain
it.
it.
Just close. Just make the domain not visible. Keep it. So what I'm just saying is keep it.
That's
But
what
it-
we're talking
Yeah,
about.
yeah. Keep
Visibility.
it.
Yeah. No.
I just want to make sure that we take this action immediately. Is that? I'm not sure that was included in the.
Tomorrow.
Is that okay for a
I think it's immediate, yes.
So you need to take a vote on that.
So all those in favour of stopping its visibility? Yeah. Thank you. So now we move on to the Heritage Red Telephone Kiosk adjacent to the post office. And I think that's
To me, it is. So most of you will know that we own a number of assets as a parish council. Some of those include some of the red telephone boxes that you see out and about. Most of them have now been adopted by a custodian, so we don't really need to do anything with them, so they look after the little libraries and the veg box and the ones that you've seen about. There is one in the centre of Homeford that is next to the post office, which doesn't really have a function at the moment. Won't really work as a library because of where it is. So ideas for that really is what we would like to do with that particular phone box. I have some ideas, but
Go ahead.
I'd really, so my pitch to you is to make it the Home Valley's smallest arts venue, to invite local artists and schools to exhibit, and potentially make it as a bookable space for music or performance art as well. So that's me. If anybody else has
I'd have an idea that very similar to yours, that it would be something arty and stimulating, but that it would be interactive. So that if it, I don't know, if it was a crochet exhibition, that there would be a bit like you would have your books, you'd have a thing that you can interact with and take home to make with a pattern to do with whatever the art is within it. So it's not just passive.
but it could be part of it,
swapping.
shifting
Yeah,
space.
yeah.
As a Homeford is a very good drinking venue. This is my concern about the libraries.
Would it be a good idea to invite like the local emergency services to come like Christmas periods and so make it a malleable space and give those drinking things that you put in the top of your alcohol bottles, you know, like a safety awareness thing, personal alarms and things like that. The ambulance service do it, the police do it.
So not just
And then like
space,
the fire brigade do like testing alarm kits for you. You know what I mean? To make it a malleable medium. So for example, every month it changes. So maybe a media thing, maybe a.
Yeah, that's one of the things I was going to say. I think one of the things that the parish council struggles with, and we try to sort of help with this kind of thing, and is the human face-off. And actually, for me, this is crying out for a social media campaign, because you don't do what you want to do. You go onto Facebook and you say, and Instagram, and you say, we've got a telephone box. Who wants it for September? Yeah. Who wants it for November? And then you've got a really engaging community.
Exactly.
You know, what we're going to do with it campaign, and it gets filled with sustainability focused things or art focused things, and it doesn't all become one way, and you're using it in an interactive kind of way to drive media interest. Yeah.
Do you see its primary function as a an awareness raising what the parish council can do type of activity, or does it serve some other purpose?
So personally, I see it as a resource and it's one of our assets and that we can make much better use of it than just it sitting there.
If you think about it, it's funny.
Yeah.
So, well, how often does the parish council get something that's funny to hang its hat on, to be personally engaging with people? It's great, you know?
It's like that lady in Shepley who puts those covers over the telephone box. Have you seen her? I always follow her. What's she done this month? And yeah, a bit sadly a little.
Surprised, aren't you? Are you surprised?
No, I'm just like, it's all right.
No, but she needs snowmen and winter pumpkins in. Have you seen it? It's done.
Can I make a suggestion then that Gemma moves forward with this initiative on our behalf and comes back to us with some suggestions and contact anybody who you think we need to have a chat with X, Y or Z about it, which might be either this communications working group or it might be the climate action group or both indeed. Does that sound like a way forward?
Can we ask everybody? Sorry.
Yeah. Yeah. Thank you. Chair?
Oh,
Oh, sorry.
Oh,
Yes, what to do then?
All those in
Get used
favour?
to it. Thank you.
Thank you.
So you're going to need a motion at this point, Chair, to extend the meeting or decide what you're going to do.
It's 9.
It's 9 o'clock. How much more have we got to go through? We need another half hour really, but I guess, if possible.
Chair, can I give my apologies?
Yeah.
I think I'm really happy as well because I'm here for 9, so yeah, there's some funny to do.
Rob's stuck because we crowd it down.
All those in favour of a continuation to 9:30? Okay, thank you very much. Thank you very much indeed for your time.
Yes, that's
And indeed, look forward to working with you.
just drop me an email.
So, the revised media and communications policy. Do you want to say something about this, Gemma?
Can do, yes. It's sort of coming into this role, it became very obvious quite early on that the media policy we had wasn't really fit for our purposes. And we've got lots of the code of conduct sort of speaks to how we all behave in our own social media. And then we had a social media policy that was a bit out of date and not all factually correct. And then we had a media policy which was more about engaging with the press and print media, and what kind of needed to happen was it all needed to be brought into one and speak to how we communicate as a institution, as an organisation, and there was no guidelines on how we did that at all. It was all about individuals. So I have attempted to bring that all together and have just drafted a policy for consideration. If you're happy with it as it is, I can change what is in place, and it can. Does it need to go to full council, Jane?
It needs policies go to full council.
Yeah. So you can recommend for it to go to
full council.
or you can pick it
They're
apart.
scrutinised at committee level, and then they go to full council.
The next full council is not until
9th of October.
Until October, so we have time to come back to the case committee if we so wish. Can I make a proposal that we have a good look at it, and if there's anything that you think actually it would better if this is worded or this is missed out or any of that, send that through to Gemma and then we can bring it back in its final draft to case on the 4th of September. Does that work? Yeah. All those in favour? Or unless
Are we
someone
talking
says
about it
anything?
individually or at the working party?
No, individually. And then the next item is the publicising the work of the Parish Council through all media. clerk and assistant clerk's report.
Yeah, this is a quick one. It's just to note the reports have gone out and that you've had copies of in the papers sent out. And then if I can just draw your attention to what it says in the agenda about moving forward. Looking for a steer from the committee regarding the Clark team's use of social media. At the moment, where we are at is with the last parish council. Basically, if councillors posted something that was to do with the Home Valley, it would often get liked and promoted and sometimes shared by the officers. However, we had an incident earlier on this year, and because of that, at the moment, what we are doing as a team is we're actually sort of not liking anything. We're just sort of promoting our own posts, as it were. So, what I'm looking for from the committee tonight is your view on where we should be as a Clark team. So, for example, things which are overtly political and so forth, of course, we should not be liking on behalf of the parish council because we maintain that neutrality. But generally speaking, if councillors are promoting something to do with Home Valley Parish Council aims and objectives and so forth, or things which are positive within the Home Valley, then the officers who control the Facebook page and as a social media could be liking that and promoting it. But at the moment where we're at is we have just stopped liking anything from any councillors regarding anything, not just overtly political stuff, but anything. So that's where we're at the moment.
Yes.
The other steer that we could probably do with is whether what business gets posted in social media as well. We are often asked by local community organisations to promote an event or something that we want to share. And whether that can.
So that's been custom and practice that the Clark's team has made a decision about whether it gets posted or not.
It's quite often if it's an organisation that we've recently given a grant to and they're having an event, then we'll probably like post about the event, for example.
Can I comment on this?
You may.
As a minority Tory member on the group, I don't know if you've noticed we're a minority, but we are, only minded slightly by the Independent and the Green Party, but we are a minority on the group. So sometimes I look at the posts, not often, but sometimes I look at the posts and there might be a comment from a town councillor, right, that then pulls down a Tory person.
Do you mean the Kirklees Council?
Yeah, Kirklees Council, the town council, right. So for example, there was one the other day by a town councillor and he made some comments about the NHS, to which I work in, comments about the Tories pulling the NHS to bits, to which I am a Tory, right, and that is what I was voted in on. And I found the comments really offensive, but I didn't put anything derogatory on that councillor's post because that is not like you vote that way. That's your choice. That's your choice, isn't it? But the parish council had liked the post, or it might have been the Climate Action Emergency Group. Someone had liked something to do with the parish council had liked the post, and I found that quite offensive. Not about it wasn't. I understand that particular councillor is running a campaign to be an MP, and I understand that particular council doesn't get on with Jason McCarthy. I ain't going to give him a cup of tea either, but that's my personal opinion of that MP. But what I'm saying is that sometimes the councillor, there's two councillors, there's two Labour councillors. One is Moses Crook, and the other one is Paul Davis. One of them plays relatively fairly. The other one plays quite derogatory. And I would never pull apart the Labour team to do with the parish council or the town council, and I would appreciate that that was reconciled the other direction, that's
Okay,
all.
thank you very much, Joe. I mean, I hear where you're coming from. My view, for what it's worth, is that the thing that one has to be cognizant of is that one's own position. So as a parish councillor, if I, as soon as I like something that's been posted, I know that people know that I'm a parish councillor or are likely to pick that up. I actually don't think there's any reason for the Clark team to like anything. I think there should be remote, just not engage in it, and then it doesn't arise. That would be my view.
I was going to say I'm not a great fan of Facebook, and I think I find this liking stuff like fatuous actually makes me really cross because it's not about real life. So I don't think it's the role of a council officer or anyone really in our position to be doing any of this, to be honest.
It was, to your point, it was to understand where the Clark's team are they political or not, and if they aren't, then they should be neutral, full stop. It's a civil service type argument from my perspective.
And how do you become neutral? You don't like anything, do you?
Yeah.
You just don't do anything.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Sorry, I completely agree that I don't think, I was surprised when I saw that Clarks were actually liking things, because it's very difficult to make a distinction or decide what is political and what is not political. I think just don't do it. I would think. And then that preserves your neutrality.
Chris?
For clarity, are you liking it? We're talking about the Clarks as the council liking it or not? Not on your personal.
Yes.
Yeah. I don't see what the council gains from liking stuff on social media.
Shoves
Like
it up,
that.
shoves it up the ratings.
Well,
It does.
but
That's exactly how it works. Yeah.
That's
It's an
how
argument.
the
The
argument
more
works.
visual, yeah, the more visual it becomes.
Anyway, the point is about appropriacy, isn't it, really? So I think
we think it's not
that
appropriate.
the suggestion is that
Safer not to.
Yeah, it is.
do we need to vote on that, or?
Can I clarify?
Yes.
Likes on anything, regardless of whether that is a councillor or whether it is a group that we've given a community grant to or anything like that. So this is what we're asking for.
I don't think a grant's
No
the
likes.
same. I don't think a grant's the same, because we've granted them the money, haven't we? So we've approved the process. Whether I agree or you don't agree is irrelevant, isn't it? We have given them money, it's on the Facebook page. I think you can like the grant, just not.
We've already approved it because we gave the grant. So I think I think it's a case of don't. End
It's
of.
just easier, isn't it?
Do we need to vote on that? All those in favour?
Point.
Sorry. Sorry.
We like making it hard.
Again, the sharing of particularly community events that we are asked to do by members of organisations locally who are maybe charities or schools or whatever that might be that are not politically affiliated, but sometimes we are asked to promote just events that happen, community events that happen, we're passed on quite regularly that we do share.
I think that's the more tricky one, personally. But maybe that's something that we can ask the Communications and Engagement Working Group to give some thought to.
You got off that one.
Nothing like deferring, is there?
We don't get voted after it, I think. We need to vote about liking, or rather not liking.
Say the worst.
So the proposal is to not engage in liking any.
So no HV Parish Council channels will be used
Is that
to like
right?
anything at all.
Okay, so it's the obvious way to go. I know that Rich has a different opinion on it in terms of he sees it as promoting very often the work that the parish council has done within the community in sort of on a more general level promoting the home valley. But it then all becomes a matter of judgment, doesn't it? Whereas I think bringing it to the committee for a steer. You know, you've given us a steer.
Yeah.
And I think that's
But I think in response to what you're telling us about Rich, and I think he's right about, you know, promoting and putting us out there, but that's actually a different issue. You know, how we do that is another question. But liking somebody else's post is not one of them.
Right, okay.
It isn't a different question in the sense that the more you like stuff, the more you are promoting it, the higher up it, the more
Yes, I
people,
know.
the wider other people will see it. But because it's contentious and because it's a difficult balance, we're saying not to like things at the moment.
Yeah.
And can I ask a question about businesses and things? Does the parish council promote businesses, or is it simply communities and charities?
This is a slightly wobbly answer.
Yes, that's fine.
And actually, if you read the media policy that I've written, there is some guidance in here, but I have deliberately kept it vague because we have an item on the agenda about the Tidy Trader Awards, where we give awards to local businesses. Now, if that is not promoting their business, I don't know what is. However, advertising is very different, and I would definitely say that, you know, telling a business they're brilliant at what they are doing and celebrating a member of our community is one thing.
Yes.
And maybe advertising your mate's bar, possibly not appropriate there. And we do need to find a line there, but I have sort of deliberately kept that a little bit more open.
Okay. Anything else on that?
I was going to say, when it comes to applying for grants, there are strict criteria about the types of organisations that can apply for grants. And though, to me, those would be the same category of organisations that we would share their events. Is that not a reasonable way of going forward?
Quite possibly.
So that there would be a criteria. If we were to share a community event, and then it would.
Yeah, because they would fall within the type of people that can apply for grants.
Let's have a look at that as part of the communications working group. Yeah.
Okay, so are you going to take a vote on the steer you've given us then, not to like?
Yeah.
Yeah, we got those in favour?
Yeah.
Thank you.
So, community engagement.
You might want to consider deferring this to your working group.
I think so. Thank you very much. So the next item is awards.
Can I push that back? How long's the Tidy Trader Award?
I think it dates back to. It certainly dates back to pre-COVID, and I feel it was well established by the time COVID happened.
Is the business of awards something that is due for review? Do you think?
In here we've got to consider, really what we're asking is to consider carrying on this year's as they were before, so with the Tidy Trader Awards in the autumn and the Community Champion Awards in the spring, or whether you want to review the whole lot, possibly for one big event, well, not as part of your working groups, but possibly with a view to decide to carry on as it was now, or to review everything with the possibility of doing one larger gala event in the spring that included business, community, individuals.
Make that decision.
Well, one of the reasons why it's on the agenda now, and we didn't just leave it till September, is a Tidy Trader Awards. Traditionally, what happened is that councillors put forward suggestions, and it was all about, you know, how appealing and attractive the frontages of local businesses were. So, you know, last year, if you take that, two of the award winners were the old bridge and then the Fleece in Home, and it was all really, it was an opportunity to take photos of how lovely those businesses looked. So that's why that was time specific. But in fact, by the time we got to Walden, because of our late Queen passing, it was November anyway, by the time we actually got round to taking photos of the chair. But I just sort of wanted to make sure you, as the new committee, had the opportunity to consider whether you wanted to re-establish Tidy Traders as it was, which is nominations were made during the summer period really by councillors taking photos of the businesses they wanted to nominate while they were looking in their summer glory, and then the awards were sort of made in the September. So that you may want to continue with that, you may decide to do something else. Otherwise it would have been otherwise it would have been an item that was left until September anyway. The other thing just to throw in at the moment is another competition we had was Haydash School last year at the behest of our chair then, Jason Brooke, had a Christmas card competition, and I think Mary was there at the awarding of prizes for that. And that's something else which is sort of part of your remit, is to whether you would want to commission one of our local primary schools to do a Christmas card design for this year, because if you want to do that, we need to get it moving now.
Jan?
Can I just ask if we could change the awards to be a bit more environmentally friendly? So like we are supposed to be an environmental group and like be about carbon stuff. So why don't we ask like businesses that are actively
Green awards.
green awards and people in the community who encourage things, and let's not cut some trees down and do a Christmas card award, although it's very nice, but can we not ask them to do green things at school, or collect aluminium cans and crush them, and do you know, stuff like that?
And that was in the report from the Climate Action Group, that there should be a green award. That was their outgoing report. So I absolutely agree, a green award.
I agree what Jo just said. I mean, I think we need to review them. I've always hated the name of the Tidy Trader Awards. It's really quite patronising, I feel, and I'm not even sure that it's appropriate. So, I mean, I don't think it would take long for the group, the working party, the media working party, to have a look at the awards and reassess them.
So is your proposal that the transaction working group has a look
Yes, so we don't just
turning these into green sustainable
we don't
awards?
just go ahead with the awards as they were last year, that we take the chance to change them this year.
But with the caveat that we maybe go ahead and ask the schools to submit or to go through the process of
leave it to the working group to discuss this.
No, I would prefer not, as chair, I would prefer not to do that. I think we should be discouraging.
I think.
Sorry,
I think we should be discouraging Christmas cards. I would prefer not to do
okay.
that.
Yeah, got you. Chris?
I think there are two things. I think the pubs and cons side need to review the whole lot that we existingly have. The Green Group has suggested a Green Award, so the Green side needs to set criteria for what we're looking for that award.
Can I just say that in Horbury in Wakefield, they do and I'm not suggesting that we do this, but I'm just telling you what they do. They have put a scheme in where you can apply to the parish council for a grant, and they give you £500 towards updating your frontage of your shop. You know, like in vintagey colours, and if you go down Queen Street in Horbury, it's all very vintagey looking, all very uniformed, all very beautiful, and they've done it over, they do so many a year, 3 a year or something, and you can apply for the grant and they give you so much and whatever, and it just makes it look so much more tidy.
Might be something that we did, if we followed that proposal, it might be something that we work with the Hunferth Conservation Group in conjunction with. Sorry, Mary.
there is a working party has been set up by the planning committee to look at shop proposals for shop improvements in the Home Fair.
So the two things can be worked together then by the sound of things. Alison and then Fran.
Well, I might go to say what you're going to say, but HV Camp had actually discussed an idea of having green awards or green badges for shops if they've proven to show an initiative. And so, a bit like, you know, you have
Food standard ones.
for staff, yeah, this fair wage payer, you know, you get these things, but yeah. So,
So when we were, when HOT existed and we were giving out grants from the hot wind turbine, we thought of, you know, if for example one of the shops redid all their lights with LED for one of our grants, we wanted them, you know, sort of plug in the window saying this was by HOT, you know, so to advertise HOT, but obviously HOT doesn't exist anymore. But you know, it's a similar sort of thing really, isn't it? And it would be a way to advertise the grants, advertise the climate committee, you know, where we award grants to advertise.
Can I just ask then, is there, are there any of these awards that are listed here, ones that people want to just continue with? Or are we saying we're going to do a root and branch review here and that's going to be done by the working group on public, the Green Awards type stuff is going to be worked on by the Climate Action Committee. Should we have a verse on that then? So those two.
Root and branch review of awards through the working groups.
Yeah.
Okay. Good. Publicising the work of the committee.
That's a standing item that goes with it.
Is it?
It's at the end of the meeting.
So is that, do we need to say anything about that then?
If anybody has anything they would like me to
Put on Facebook and then like.
and not like, or on the website, or anywhere else, print out a poster and put it on the notice board out front,
So, and is that a call that will go out to the full council?
It goes on the, it's the last item on every agenda.
Okay, thank you.
Can I suggest your letterboxing when you've got it going?
Absolutely, yeah.
Your postboxing, and also if we are going to consider grants for green things, that's publicised as a possibility.
It will be at the
So
time.
that means you were, so when we get there.
Yeah, exactly.
I do have a current grants flyer that I made up for the Honey Show, but it's something that I've been surreptitiously dropping around town as well, in a Honley Library and any community building that I happen to visit as well. So Mary, I think you were going to put some of it in the Methodist Church, weren't you?
Yes. So can you?
So it's something that I can share on that.
that.
You won't have yet because it's brand new. But I will be.
Yeah. You should be distributing those.
Yeah, I've got a small stash here that you can take away with you should anybody be going anywhere that might benefit from a grant. But I have digital copies as well, so I'm hoping to do a bit of a campaign over the next sort of 3-ish weeks. Sort of 3-ish weeks of sort of Facebook and our various networks of community groups that we work with as well.
Okay, that's great. Well, thank you very much indeed. I have to say, I don't think it's too fine a point to say utterly astounded by the volume of stuff that went for this committee. And I do wonder whether it's possible for that to be condensed in any way, or whether we're just hidebound by standing orders and all of that bureaucratic system.
There just is such a lot.
You know, 75 pages.
Is
that simply because of the point that we're at, do you think?
Yeah, I mean, I think, you know, you had a couple of reports coming, didn't you, like the COVID memorial one, you know, which was, and morale for my previous.
Anyway, thank you very much indeed. Thank you very much for your attendance, everybody.
Thanks for volunteering.